Hey guys, it's Ben the Coin Geek, and welcome to a mailbag. We got lots of little questions to get to. Just a reminder, of course, you can always like videos, comment, and subscribe. That helps with the algorithm. And also, we do have some membership levels if you choose to support us in our mission to continue to educate and entertain people when it comes to coins and coin collecting. You can't get that just anywhere you go, and you probably can't get that here either, but we're going to try. So, on to the questions. Jose says, I'll never fall for any fads. Toned coins now? Question mark. The toned coin market is, I don't know that I would call it a fad per se. I do think that it's here to stay. I guess if you want to look at something as a fad, if the prices shoot up and then plateau and then maybe come back down over time. I'm trying to think of things that were a fad, like getting coins graded and CAC. Those were fads also. But they kind of hung around a little bit longer than we thought they would for most fads. But I think that the toned coin market is kind of here to stay. I don't know that you'll see quite as high prices. We are in, I think, some type of coin inflationary period when it comes to certain items. And when I see common date toned Morgans that are toned really beautifully sell for $1,000 when I think 5 years ago I would have got $200 for it, I do think that that portion of the market is like fad pricing. Maybe I'll go that way. But I don't think it's a fad. In other words, I think you're always going to have a pretty strong market for toned coins moving forward. But you know, are we going to call white coins, blast white coins? Is that the next fad then? There are collectors out there still who really only prefer white coins. And so blast white original, and that's what they look for, and that's what they collect. So thanks for the comment. That's a good one. All right, Barnes says, back in the 1850s, where did the mint get gold from? Was it bought from the miners with silver dollars or paper money? All right, so this depends a lot on what part of the country you live in. Of course, you may have heard of a football team called the San Francisco 49ers, because in 1849 gold was found out at Sutter's Mill. But of course, on the East Coast, there were plenty of gold mines out in the Carolinas and in Georgia, and you would see the mint had two mints. The U.S. had two mints in that area because of the gold. So the U.S. Mint would get gold from the Carolinas and from Georgia, and the Charlotte and Dahlonega mints would crank out some gold coins. Those are fun to try to collect. There are some $5 gold pieces that are quote-unquote affordable, you know, for $1,500 to a couple grand, somewhere in there if you can find a nice problem-free example. And as far as out west, though, you know, gold was a commodity. It was money, right? So the miners, yes, they would get paid in other materials. Yes, they'd take payment in silver or in paper money from time to time. But really, the gold was their wealth. They didn't have to get paid as far as the miners go, right? But the mint would buy gold from individual miners as well. And you know, that's all a matter of contracts and subcontracts and all this stuff that we don't really think about when we think about the Old West. But really, your miner was probably turning his gold dust into some silver dollars, most likely, because if he had a little pinch of gold and he could get, you know, $10 for it or whatever the amount was, well, that's probably an exaggeration actually for a pinch of gold. But the point is he would be turning it into silver coinage most likely and trying to accumulate some wealth that way. He was selling it probably to a middleman who probably had contracts with a refiner or with someone else who dealt directly with the mint. The U.S. Mint was probably not dealing with 10,000 different miners. They were probably dealing with some subcontractors. In fact, I forgot the names of some of the companies. Clark Gruber, some of the companies that did minting with and for the government. So there is that. Okay, so the miners got money in the way of usually silver coins would probably be the most likely thing that they would want to take, because they probably didn't want paper money too much back in the 1850s. All right, let me see here. Up next, we've got Michael saying, I noticed on the coins that they have subgrades for strike and surface. We're talking about ancient coins now. I've seen videos, and I think a few of yours, about grading U.S. coins. You mentioned weak strike, surface chatter, and other descriptions. So why don't grading companies use terms they use on ancients to currently grade coins? Best wishes. Michael, Thank you. Yes, I agree 100%. Why don't they? I personally think that it would be good. The more descriptives they can put on a coin, I think the better. I think one of the things you run into from a real practical standpoint right now, if you are NGC or PCGS, is just you got such a backlog that your express service that you pay extra money for that used to take roughly 2 weeks turnaround time. Now, mind you, that's counting shipping both ways and their grading time. So you're talking about basically only being in their offices for 3 or 4 days at the most for express. That's taking closer to 2 months right now. And so that's, I'm speaking specifically about some recent PCGS experiences that I've had. So they are really backed up. And of course, anytime you want to add more monikers, more titles, more names, more words to a label, it's going to take more time, more time and more money. So I think that the real answer is that probably they don't want to have to add any more services than they already provide. I think it would be good for the hobby. I think anytime you can sit down with a collector and a dealer and they can talk about a coin one-on-one, you can start getting a little bit more into the details. And then the nice thing, though, is for you as a collector to think about, well, I can, as a collector, I can learn what these things are and apply them so that when I look at a coin, I can decide, hey, I really only want coins that have a certain strike quality or a certain luster quality, or you name the different type of descriptive that you can put to a coin, and you can set those parameters for yourself. Thanks for the question. G'day, Kanye. I have found the coolest book on old silver mustard pots at a thrift shop. I collect anything silver or books about silver and antiques. I can't get enough. All right, so this is fun. I didn't know that silver mustard pots existed, let alone that there were books written about them. So that's always fun. I appreciate that because I know here, for those of you who actually watch the channel regularly and don't just watch open box videos, you'll see we share all types of historical items and antiques, and there's just a whole lot of overlap with the history stuff. And so good on you, mate. I think that's fantastic. All right, Alfred says, back in the 60s, while I was in college, I used to buy $20 gold pieces for $60 and $10 coins for $40. I sold the 20s to our Elks Club and Country Club for $80, sold the $10 for $60. I had a good run. So I think that's awesome. So I wanted to point this comment out for a couple of different reasons. The history behind the price points of things is always, to me, intriguing. And of course, when you look back towards something, it gives you a little bit of a time capsule approach that maybe can help you understand how should you perceive the current and how should you perceive the future, which is to say, in the 60s, none of these guys ever thought, when they bought their 20s at $60, which, by the way, I've found $20 gold pieces with labels at $37 and, just really inexpensive relative to face value, right? At that time, that was the market. I mean, no one thought, well, I'm going to hold out till 1800, right? So you get to 80, from 60 to 80, and it's like, man, but $80, what was that in the 60s? You could have, completely replaced your engine. Like, what are you doing? I know guys who bought cars for $300 in the 60s. So, actually in the 70s, actually into the 80s, but that's a whole other discussion. That's not for this channel. But yeah, I mean, so if you think about what the coin market's done over time, and you just think about, well, inflation, whatever you want to call it, this is why an old buddy of mine had a saying that you'll never meet a broke coin collector, because the reality is you buy stuff, if you hold on to it for a long enough time, you tend to beat inflation. You tend to have things that are worth more than they were, as long as you're just buying at normal market prices. And also, I think this speaks well to just buying gold and silver personally. It's fun to have some of that stuff, and I love the fact that he had a good run. That's optimism right there. David says, Ben, what you called junk, we called coinage silver in the 1960s, as it was disappearing from circulation. 900 fine for the U.S. coinage, 800 fine for the Canadian. They were both coinage. Perfect name. Never need to change it to anything else. So I've mentioned a few times the way that some of the titles of things have changed over time. Junk silver is a term that we used to use for 90% silver, but we pretty much only called it 90% or junk. I mean, that was kind of the two terms that were used. And it was called junk silver partially because it was the least expensive silver you could buy. It was a lot less expensive than anything else in the marketplace. And so I think that's one of the reasons it got the nickname junk. Also because at the time, anything from that time period, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, that was numismatic was not junk, it was numismatic, right? So you had stuff that was numismatic versus, okay, junk. You can just put that with the silver, with the other silver, it's just junk silver. It's not collectible. And I think that's probably where the term originated, the term junk, as it was things, items that were not collectible per se. The term constitutional silver is a brand new title that people just started using, I think, within the last 5 years. Somebody marketed it that way and it kind of stuck. And so now I have people coming in asking for constitutional silver, which I find to be a pretty interesting term because our entire country was built on nothing but debt and without any specie at all. But anyways, that's another video for another day, which maybe we'll have to talk about sometime. So anyways, thanks guys so much for watching. Appreciate it. I'm Ben the Coin Geek. You can subscribe by clicking on the owl button and watch more videos on the right side of the screen. Thanks.